The situation surrounding Micah Parsons and the Dallas Cowboys has become more than just a contract negotiation. It's turning into an all-out standoff, full of frustration, confusion, and finger-pointing from both sides. ESPN's Adam Schefter dropped a major update that paints a pretty bleak picture. Not only are the Cowboys and Micah Parsons far from agreeing on a new deal, they've actually moved backwards in negotiations since their private meeting in March and April. According to Schefter, there's barely any communication happening at all. That initial momentum, when Jerry Jones and Micah reportedly sat down and made some progress, has completely stalled. Schefter described the current state of affairs not as a negotiation, but as silence. Now, whether that changes before the season or in the weeks ahead remains to be seen, but this kind of impasse is something Cowboys fans have seen before, whether it was with CeeDee Lamb or Dak Prescott. Dallas has a history of dragging things out with its biggest stars. But this time, something feels different, maybe more personal, more tense, with both Micah and the front office clearly feeling disrespected and annoyed with how things have unfolded. Both publicly and privately, the Cowboys and Parsons camp are trying to shift the blame. Stephen Jones says things like, "We want to pay Micah, but he has to want to be paid," which makes absolutely no sense when Micah is literally sitting out of practice in a hold in trying to get paid. On the other hand, Parsons is calling them out, saying his agent has been reaching out but is getting nothing in return. From his perspective, this feels like a one-way street. He's trying to make something happen, and the Cowboys are leaving him on red. Parsons even said last week that he doesn't take it personally, but at the same time, he doesn't understand why the team that supposedly values him so much isn't reciprocating that urgency. And the hypocrisy on the Cowboys' end is wild, Stephen says. It's not their business to talk about contracts in public, then immediately talks about Micah's. It's clear both sides feel burned by how close they thought they were to a deal, only for everything to collapse when Parsons' agent stepped in. But that's part of the business. You don't hire a powerhouse agent like David Mullacheta unless you're serious about getting every dollar you're worth. For Dallas to act surprised by that shows just how naive and stubborn they're being. This is classic Cowboys front office behavior. If a player is willing to take a hometown discount, they move fast. That's what happened with guys like Trayvon Diggs, Terrence Steele, and Jalen Smith. But the second a player wants top-of-the-market money like Zach Martin, Dak Prescott, Amari Cooper, and now Micah Parsons, it becomes a dragged-out circus. What's becoming increasingly clear is that both sides expected this situation to go differently. Parsons believed, after that secret meeting, they were close to sealing the deal. Now, not only has no deal been finalized, but the market has shifted even more, likely raising his asking price. And it doesn't help that Jerry and Stephen Jones appear to be on different wavelengths. Jerry recently said Parsons might be the most talented player the Cowboys have ever had. Meanwhile, Stephen is trying to play hardball and downplay Micah's leverage. It's the same old dynamic. Jerry wants to win now, while Stephen wants to protect the long-term cap, and the friction between those goals always spills into public drama. And you can bet that the infamous "there's only one pie" metaphor is going to resurface soon, as it always does when the Cowboys are about to make tough financial decisions. Despite all the tension, it still feels like the Cowboys will eventually cave and pay Micah Parsons. That's how these stories usually end. They play hardball, drag it out, frustrate the player and the fans, and then, just before the pressure cooker explodes, they hand over the check. But it doesn't mean the damage hasn't already been done. The Cowboys continue to make things harder than they need to be with their stars, turning what should be a straightforward investment in the future of their franchise into a needlessly complicated and public dispute. And for Micah Parsons, one of the most dominant young defenders in the league, this has to feel like a slap in the face. He's done everything the team has asked of him, become the face of the defense, and now he's being treated like a burden instead of a priority. Maybe this deal gets done tomorrow. Maybe it takes until the season kicks off, but make no mistake, the clock is ticking, and every day that goes by without a resolution, the tension grows louder and the spotlight gets hotter. The Cowboys can't afford to fumble this one. Not with a generational talent like Micah Parsons, and not with a locker room watching how they treat one of their own. The most frustrating part about this entire Micah Parsons contract situation is just how familiar it all feels. Cowboys fans have seen this show before. Whether it was Zach Martin, Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, DeMarcus Lawrence, or Amari Cooper, the pattern never really changes. The Cowboys drag their feet, play financial hardball, leak blame into the media, and hope the player eventually caves. But with Micah, this is different, not because the strategy has changed, but because the stakes are so much higher. We're talking about a generational defensive talent, a guy who could one day wear a gold jacket and carry the legacy of the Cowboys' defensive greats. And yet, instead of celebrating that and locking it in for the future, the organization seems locked in a petty power struggle over leverage and messaging. The Cowboys thought they were close after that secret March/April sit-down, but the moment agents entered the picture, as they always do in modern football, it's like the front office recoiled. The cold truth is this: you don't hire David Malaketa to take a discount, and the Cowboys knew that. The tension is self-inflicted. And it's getting harder to ignore the disconnect between Jerry Jones's admiration and Stephen Jones' contract strategy. On one hand, you've got Jerry publicly praising Micah as possibly the most talented player the Cowboys have ever had, throwing him in the same breath as Deion Sanders. But then, Stephen goes in front of cameras and essentially blames Parsons for not wanting to be paid badly enough, while the player is literally holding in to get paid. That kind of contradiction is why the fanbase is growing impatient and why this negotiation is playing out like a bad reality show. There's no reason this should be so messy, especially when both sides want a deal done. But what's making it worse is the passive-aggressive media leaks, the finger-pointing, and the stubbornness on both ends. It doesn't feel like a professional standoff, it feels like a grudge match. And while history says the Cowboys eventually get deals done, every passing day makes this saga more toxic than it needs to be. This isn't just about money. This is about trust, timing, and who blinks first.